Caleb Quaye entered the British music scene in the late 1960s. And one of the people that was a contemporary and an intimate close friend, Reg Dwight. Now everybody's glazing over when they hear that. But then he changed his name, so.
To Elton John.
It was 1970 when Caleb joined the Elton John band as lead guitarist, and there was no looking back. The first album, titled Elton John, soared to the top of the American charts. For 10 years, Caleb toured with Elton John, traveling all over the world. He was also a well-known studio musician who worked with rock legends Mick Jagger, Peter Townsend, Paul McCartney, and Hall & Oates. And the concerts in front of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, that kind of heady atmosphere and that environment, how did you handle all that? Not well.
Not very well. No, not very well. You know, we were young. You know, we were in our early 20s at the time when it all exploded, you know. So all the, you know, lots of energy and stuff, but also lots of drugs as well.
Do you feel like you had arrived, this was it, and there was no more?
That's a great question. You know, people used to say to me back then, they used to say, "Oh, Caleb, you've really made it now." And back then we were doing like 4-hour shows to, as you say, hundreds of thousands of people. You know, we were the first band to sell out Madison Square Garden for 7 days in a row. And sometimes we'd come off stage and, you know, we'd be in a hotel or something. I'd look at myself in the mirror. I still have my stage clothes on, you know. And I'd look at myself in the mirror and I would say, there's got to be something else, because I felt empty.
By 1978, Caleb was still playing night after night in sold-out venues. But that nagging feeling of emptiness continued. That year, he turned 30. After celebrating his birthday with his fellow band members, Caleb sat in a chair, stoned out of his mind.
And all of a sudden, I heard a voice. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but it's like a voice out of nowhere just speaks to me. And this voice was so loud, it was, to me, I thought somebody had actually walked into my room. And I'm looking around thinking, oh, who's there? You know, couldn't see anybody. And the voice just very clearly said to me, Caleb, from this point on, your life is going to be completely different. Nothing's going to be the same for you ever again.
Whoa.
All of a sudden, I find myself no longer high on the drugs or anything.
You were high when you heard the voice?
Oh, yeah, we'd been on the road for 6 months. I mean, just, you know. And all of a sudden, I'm like, and so I just sat there in that electric moment and just made a promise to myself. I said, one day, I'm going to find out who that voice belongs to.
Caleb's drug use continued, and eventually he was dealing drugs to supply his own habit.
And from that point on, for the next like 2.5, 3 years, everything in my life basically that could go wrong, it went wrong.
Huh.
Marriage, finances, studio, everything, like the phone's not going anymore. Everything just kind of got stripped away. It
Crash
was like,
and burn.
Yeah, it was like I was no longer in control of my life, you know? And during that period of time, I met a guy, a dear guy, became great friends. His name is Chester Thompson.
Chester Thompson was and is a world-class drummer. He's performed with Phil Collins, Weather Report, and Genesis. He asked Caleb what he believed about life. Caleb was desperate to find answers to his questions, so he agreed to go to church with Chester.
And they kept singing this one song called In My Life, Lord, Be Glorified Today. They kept repeating it over and over again, and this song started to do something, you know. And it was strange because I didn't hear all the lyrics to it. I only heard one word. It was like everything was in a fog and I just heard today. And in the middle of all of this, the same voice I heard in the hotel room 2.5 years, whatever, previously, speaks to me right there in the church and says, Caleb, it's time for you to come home to me today because I have a new life for you.
You heard it that clearly?
That clear. That clear. 27 years ago today, as I'm telling you now, it was that clear. And the light went, I'm going, now I know who that voice belongs to. That's Jesus. The next thing I know, I'm up out of the chair, my hands up in the air like this. I'm looking at my hand thinking, how did I get up here? And I'm looking down here. My friend Chester and his wife were on their knees crying and praying. And so I just said, Lord, if you can do something with me, you can take me now.
Whoa.
And that's when I said, yes. Whew. The greatest yes I've ever said in my life.
Caleb accepted Christ as his Savior, and he heard Jesus telling him this time to be baptized.
I went in the water, an 18-year drug addict, a mess, and came up with a brand new mind.
Wow.
You know.
That day, Caleb was freed from drug addiction. Today, he's still making music and spending time with his family. He says it's good to reflect on all that has happened in his life.
So I know Jesus not only as my Savior, but as my deliverer and my healer. You know, and I came up there with just a brand new understanding, which has never left me to this day, and that is simply that God knew me and had accepted me and claimed me as one of his own.
Caleb's music of the past and present is the topic of much conversation today, and so is his book, A Voice Louder Than Rock and Roll.
In Isaiah 42:10, it says this, God speaking, I'm going to bring forth a new song that's never been heard in the heathen world.
Yeah, oh yeah, a new song that has the power to heal and the power to renew, and that's it.
So it's more than rock and roll. It's a voice louder than rock and roll.
It's a voice louder than rock and roll on every level. It really is, yeah.